Chapter 10 of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is the final chapter, and Dr. Jekyll narrates it by way of his letter explaining what he did and why. It starts with an admission that he has led a dishonest life, acting one way in public and another in private. His scientific studies align with this reality. He had set out to literally split these identities. Jekyll formulates a drug that creates a second body and personality. He tests the painful process. It works! He embraces the reality of having a second self, engaging first in a few undignified pleasures and later monstrous ones. About 2 months before the Carew murder, he falls asleep as Jekyll, but wakes up as Hyde. Hyde has become his natural state. Jekyll then puts Hyde aside for 2 months. When he lets him emerge again, that's when Carew gets murdered, and everyone looks for Hyde, which keeps him contained. He begins turning into Hyde while he is conscious and in public, without using his drug at all. At first, he feared being executed for murder, but now he's afraid of living as Hyde. Then Hyde writes letters to Poole and Lanyon. He appears at Lanyon's, where he changes back to Jekyll. Exhausted, he goes home to sleep, and when he wakes up, he changes to Hyde again. Hyde's power seems to grow as Jekyll weakens. The drug stops working, and he eventually concludes that some mysterious impurity in the original batch is what has allowed it to work its transformation. Jekyll takes the last of the original potion, but he ends the letter unsure what will happen. This chapter is the double climax of Jekyll's death and Hyde's transformation, and it wraps up the story explaining all previous plot-related mysterious events. The chapter's opening line underscores the role of class in the novella. All of this was possible because Jekyll was born to a large fortune, which gives him the money and freedom to implement his scientific investigations and later indulge his dark passions. Jekyll casts his investigations as a kind of honesty. Surely everyone has dark desires they indulge in private, and yet they still want to be respected in public. But Jekyll insists on a kind of elevated honesty, one that results in a kind of ethical purity. He's not willing to lead this divided life, and this reveals a striking twist to Jekyll's character. He's driven to his investigations because he feels his shame more intensely than most people. It is the depth and intensity of his emotions that spur him on. He also casts himself as a scientific visionary. Jekyll engages in immoral actions but lets only his ethical face be seen in public. In that sense, he's a hypocrite. The two sides are at war with each other. The acceptable public side, which includes both moral and intellectual sides of Jekyll, and the dark, hidden side, Hyde, the violent, sexual, and passionate. Now, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde falls under the Gothic movement, which shows the shadow side of 19th century progress. The progress gave England factories, railroads, an expanding economy, but it also removed or weakened sources of social stability and psychological certainty, as when Darwin's theory of evolution undercut humanity's claim to special status. One of the defining characteristics of Gothic literature is doubt, created by Stevenson here using narratives within narratives, incomplete narratives, and, in the case of this final chapter, potentially unreliable narratives. The reader must ultimately decide whom to trust, and if he or she has a self as splintered as Jekyll's.